When people picture wartime survival, they often imagine soldiers crouched in canvas tents, fighting against wind and rain. But during World War II, tents were far from perfect. They tore apart in strong gusts, soaked through under heavy storms, and were nearly impossible to pitch on rocky or muddy ground. To truth, these many soldiers didn't survive because of tents. They survived because of a forgotten shelter method that used no poles, no fabric, and almost no equipment. It was simple, low cost, and far more durable than any canvas could ever be. And the best part? It's a method that modern survivalists and bushcrafters can still rely on today. Before the age of nylon domes and high-tech tarps, soldiers discovered that the best shelter was the ground itself. A tent could cover you, but the earth could protect you. By digging into the soil, carving out slit trenches, foxholes, and dugouts, they created shelters that resisted wind, shed rain, and offered concealment from the enemy. A poncho or canvas stretched over the top became a roof, but the real strength came from the walls of packed earth surrounding them. Unlike a tent that could blow away or collapse, a dugout was anchored by nature itself. The ground absorbed rain, blocked the wind, and even helped regulate temperature. In freezing conditions, soldiers insulated their dugouts with pine branches or straw. In wetter climates, they dug drainage channels around the edges to keep water flowing away instead of pooling inside. For soldiers on the front, these shelters weren't just a place to stay dry. They were means of survival. They offered protection from shrapnel, bombs, and the relentless weather that destroyed fabric walls in minutes. The dugout became a universal solution. Across every front of the war, Europe, Africa, and the Pacific, soldiers turned to the same method. In the monsoon-soaked jungles of the Pacific, both American and Japanese troops built dugouts to survive days of unending rain. In Normandy and the Ardennes, soldiers dug into forest floors to withstand cold, wind, and shell fire. And in the deserts of North Africa, where sandstorms shredded tents, the only shelter that held firm was the one built into the earth. Even elite units like paratroopers, who carried minimal gear, always had one essential tool: a small entrenching shovel. With it, they could carve a shelter in minutes, no matter where they landed. The process was straightforward, but highly effective. A soldier would dig a trench or pit just deep enough to sit or lie in. The walls of soil provided immediate protection from wind and debris. A poncho, tarp, or layer of branches stretched over the top became the roof. Adding foliage or a thin layer of soil made the shelter waterproof and nearly invisible. Drainage was key. A shallow trench running downhill kept the rain from flooding the space. In cold weather, a thick bedding of straw, pine needles, or dry grass kept soldiers off the damp earth. When several men worked together, they could build larger dugouts, big enough to share, conserving energy and lifting morale. Over time, some units turned these makeshift pits into semi-permanent homes. They lined the walls with timber or corrugated metal, turning foxholes into bunkers that could endure weeks of combat and rain. No tent could have done the same. For today's survivalists, the lesson is simple. The best shelter isn't always the one you bring. It's the one you can build with the environment around you. Modern tents may be lightweight and easy to carry, but they're still vulnerable to strong wind and heavy weather. A dugout shelter, even a small one, offers protection that fabric can't match. In a sudden storm, with only a shovel or even a sturdy stick, you could carve out a shallow depression, cover it with a tarp or poncho, and ride out the night dry and secure. Add insulation from leaves or grass, and you've recreated the same principle that saves soldiers in the field. In long-term scenarios, whether in extended wilderness stays or emergency survival, this approach remains practical. Instead of relying on bulky gear, all you need is a compact tarp and a digging tool. The land itself provides the rest. Here's how the process works. First, choose your location wisely. Pick slightly raised ground so water drains away rather than in. Avoid dry riverbeds, steep slopes, or spots beneath dead trees. Next, dig your base deep enough to sit or lie comfortably, with soil walls rising at least a foot around you to block wind and stabilize the space. Then, build your roof. Stretch a tarp, poncho, or branches across the top, securing it with stones or soil to prevent flapping. Add brush or grass on top for extra waterproofing and camouflage. Finally, insulate. Use grass, straw, or pine needles beneath you to preserve body heat. Dig a shallow drainage channel if rain is expected. With just these simple steps, you've recreated a shelter design that stood the test of war, strong, efficient, and built entirely from what nature provides. The forgotten shelter trick of World War II wasn't about expensive gear or advanced materials. It was about resourcefulness, turning the earth into armor. Soldiers proved that the simplest methods are often the most dependable, and that survival comes not from what you carry, but from what you know. For those who value true survival knowledge, these lessons are more than history. They're field-tested truths. Learn them, practice them, and pass them on. Because when storms come and gear fails, the old wisdom still works. If you found this glimpse into forgotten wartime survival useful, subscribe to In the Beginning for more deep dives into history's practical lessons, the skills and strategies that kept people alive long before technology ever existed. Share this with others who value real, proven knowledge, and keep the legacy of resilience alive.